Hey ETAers, welcome to Season 2 of this podcast. If you've been listening, thanks for sticking around for more. And if you're new here, welcome. Get comfortable, and I hope you like what we've got lined up for you. At Every.Thing.After, we talk to bands and musicians from and touring in and around Northeast Ohio about music as community, therapy, and everything after. In this episode, I talk with Frank Meyer, a singer-songwriter who has collaborated with some titans and is now touring his solo album, Living Between the Lines. When we talked back in November 2025, that tour had wrapped up a leg that burned through the Mid-East and Northeast U.S. It was headed to the West Coast. Now that tour is in Europe. ETA? Now.
My knee-jerk reaction in the morning is to run wide-eyed towards the sun. And I can't explain why I feel this way. It's an urge I'm afraid can't be undone.
Hey, welcome to the Every.Thing.After Podcast. My guest in the studio this week is Frank Meyer, a rock star, an author, a director, a Streetwalkin Cheetah, a Pink Heart, at least an honorary member of Eddie Spaghetti's Super Suckers, maybe even a Ramone. Thanks for being on the podcast, Frank.
Thank you. I like it when you list it all out like that. It sounds much more impressive when you say it than if I just sit there and go, well, I do this and I do this.
Well, man, I tell you what, your bio is freaking crazy. You've done it all. You've been all over the place. I'm just so excited to talk to you about some of it, to get some of your insights.
Thanks,
You've collaborated with so many just amazing artists, of course, over the years. Like I said, you've written books about traveling with the Ramones. You've done music videos, and you've directed movies, and of course, you've put out a number of just incredibly fantastic records. Some with the Cheetahs, some on your own. You have a debut album out now, a solo album, which is just fantastic. I've played it, on repeat since I saw you in Cleveland here some weeks back, and it's just a fantastic record. And you've done some collaborations, of course, records with, like I mentioned, Eddie Spaghetti. You have a record with him, which is also a real banger. But it's just a real treat to be able to talk to you about some of this stuff, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. Let's get into it. Like you've been doing this for a while. How did you get started?
Well, I guess I got started initially just by being a kid that was obsessed with rock and roll. I think the first music I remember hearing, my parents always listened to the radio, but I remember when I heard Joan Jett, I Love Rock and Roll and Bad Reputation and her early hits, and the Go-Go's, We Got the Beat and all that stuff was really huge for me. And those were sort of the first songs that got me like really excited to know more about the band instead of just hearing it on the radio. It was like, who is Joan Jett? The Blackhearts, that sounds so mysterious. And in the early days of MTV, you'd see a video and just be like, whoa, these guys are so cool. And the Go-Go's to me were just so kind of like street fashion and kind of punk rock, but very pop, and I just was sort of obsessed with them. And then I heard Van Halen when I was a kid, and that was the thing that made me pick up an instrument. I just became obsessed with the guitar. And then pretty quickly around that time, heard punk rock. And, I was inspired by Eddie and Randy Rhoads and all that kind of Guitar Hero stuff. But I never felt I was gonna be that good. I was just trying really hard to do the best I could. When I heard the Sex Pistols and the New York Dolls, the guitar sound of Steve Jones and Johnny Thunders and Andy McCoy from Hanoi Rocks, that seemed a lot more in line with what I thought I could actually do. And I loved the sound of all that music too. So that all kind of sent me on my way. And by 12, I started playing guitar, formed my first little band, and wrote little dumb songs about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and all the things I thought that you should write a song about.
Yeah.
And I was just lucky, I think, because I grew up in Hollywood in the 80s, and when I was real young and first started getting hip to like, oh, there's clubs and there's club bands, and some of these clubs are all ages or whatever. The bands that I was able to see as unsigned local bands were like Guns N' Roses, Jane's Addiction, Poison, Armored Saint. I was going and seeing the Hangmen, I was going and seeing Junkyard, I was going to the Whiskey and the Roxy and the Troubadour, and then these underground clubs like the Anti-Club and Raji's, and sneaking into clubs like Scream and Club with No Name, seeing bands like Faster Pussycat and all the glam bands. And but that stuff was like, as a kid, I mean, these guys were all only like 4 or 5 years older than me. Like, I was in junior high school, and they had all just gotten out of high school, moved to LA, and started their bands to, live their dreams, their rock and roll dreams. And so it was just a great time to be a young aspiring musician, because there was a lot to be influenced by and a lot to be kind of motivated by. And so, just kept being band after band after band after band. And the first band I was in that was kind of that did anything was this local band called Highway 61. It was more of a blues rock thing, and we ended up reuniting years later and making an album. But that kind of eventually took me to forming the Streetwalkin Cheetahs, and that took me, the Cheetahs are still around. We've been playing forever, but the Cheetahs started getting into this thing where we became like the backing band for a lot of other touring musicians. So we played with Wayne Kramer from the MC5 and Sylvain from the New York Dolls and Cheetah Chrome from the Dead Boys and Dennis Tech from Radio Birdman and Cherie Currie from the Runaways. And then I actually played with Bob DeRoe, the guy who wrote all the Schoolhouse Rock stuff, and was in his touring band. So, you know, real young, it was like I'm out there just working and gigging and cutting my teeth and learning the hard way and getting my ass handed to me by better bands every night. But, you know, you do that and you do that and you do that, and you eventually kind of find your footing and find your personality and find your songwriting abilities and kind of what makes you, you know, you unique or yourself. And, you know, here we are all these years later. I've just continued doing it. I just never really stopped. But I also, along the way, as you said, I wrote, I've written 8 books, and 5 of them are about music. And I've directed a bunch of documentary films about music. So everything I do, I mean, it doesn't seem that far-fetched to me because it's like all kind of inspired by or making actual music. I've just done it in different areas, you know.
Right. Well, I mean, it's not a huge leap from songwriting to writing a book about music to writing and directing a film about music, probably. But it's not. I mean, it's certainly not exactly the same craft either.
Well, no, you're right, but I sort of see it as it's all storytelling, right?
Right. Absolutely.
If you write a song, you've got 3.5 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, to tell your story. Whatever, and that story can be, you know, a linear plot, or it can be just an emotion put to sort of poetry, whatever. But you've got a limited amount of time to tell your story and kind of make your case. When you're writing a book, you're telling a story, although most of my books and films have been nonfiction. You know, they're essentially either, you know, biographies or writing an autobiography of someone or documentary films. But there's still, especially that, there's a, you know, if I'm going to write a book about the Ramones, there's a story there. The Ramones' career is the story.
Right.
And so,
right.
you know, it's the same overall skill in the sense that, like, I'm still kind of looking at it as, like, how do I best tell this story? What's the best way to divide it up? What's my thesis? Whatever my point of view is, I got to introduce it early, support it throughout, and kind of land back on it in a way that feels rewarding, much like you would in a song.
Yeah.
If you're directing a movie, again, it's sort of the same thing. You sort of divide your piece into like 3 acts, and the first act is like the setup, and the second act is usually is like the hero almost getting what they want, but then getting knocked down a few more pegs, which makes the struggle even greater in the third act, when they finally emerge and are victorious. And I mean, that's like the hero's journey. That's kind of like basic storytelling 101. But like, I always kind of go back to that of like, you know, if you have a story, that you kind of divide it up into 3 parts and figure out the best, most compact way to tell that story.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Absolutely.
Of course, if you're writing a book, it's more than 3 parts, but you know what I'm saying. You get the analogy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, man, it sounds like your life has been in a hyperdrive since about age 12, and it's just not really slowed down since. You've been kicking ass and just out there putting in the work. That's amazing. What was the name? I'm just out of curiosity. What was the name of that first band when you were 12?
It was called Broken Toys, spelled with a Z, of course, because it was the
Awesome.
80s and we had to be glam about it. But you know, it's funny. The first couple concerts that I ever did with that band, we played a couple cover songs. So the band started off like every other band, you know, playing some cover songs to kind of get our footing and stuff, and then we were writing songs. And when I think about the songs that we were covering, it really does sort of summarize my music. It's like we did an Aerosmith song, a Sex Pistols song, a Kiss song, and a T-Rex song.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of my sound. In the a little bit of glam rock, a little heavy metal, a little punk, a little glam rock, a little classic rock. You know what I mean? Like, So I mean, the band, you know, it was an early teenage band. But we had a song called Wasted Kid, for instance, because that's, hey, you write about what you know.
Yeah. Do you think that that experience, and yeah, I mean, you've been doing it for some time. You're at the point now, like you said, coming up, you were kind of latching on to other people's gigs and tours. You were opening up for bands and things like that. And now you're kind of doing that for other bands. You're going on tour and you're bringing along some local acts as well. I noticed on this recent tour. I mean, I'm sure you've done that quite a bit. But has it changed a lot? Do you think just that? Coming of age as a rock and roller in a music scene.
I mean, I think the scene has certainly changed, but I still think you can go out there and find these younger rock and roll bands and younger rock and rollers who love the same stuff that I grew up in, all the stuff we were just talking about. Like,
right.
There's certain clubs, especially when you go outside of the United States. I toured Europe a lot, and I tour Spain a lot. And man, you can still find some in every town, some sleazy rock and roll bar that's playing the Runaways when you walk in, and everyone there kind of looks like Joey Ramone or Johnny Thunders, and they all got the black jeans and the Converse and all the cool t-shirts, and they look like they just gloriously got out of bed and their hair is like perfect but all fucked up, and maybe they're on heroin or maybe they're just heroin chic, whatever. It's like, I mean, that character exists everywhere still. So I feel like there's always going to be that, and there's always young bands. I mean, I do whatever I can, man. When I go out and tour, I go and tour as a headliner when I can. I'll open up for other artists or support other artists when I can, especially if I get a bigger tour, supporting someone else. And then I do sideman work where, like in the Streetwalkin Cheetahs, I'm the lead singer, and I myself and the other guys are the primary songwriters. We write our own material, and I'm kind of the front guy. Same thing with Trading Aces, which is my band based in Europe, which is a bit more of a kind of a hard rock, heavy metal, or kind of AC/DC kind of metal band. I'm kind of like the front guy in that. When you saw me play in Cleveland with my solo band, obviously it's Frank Meyer. I'm the front guy in that. But when I play with Fear, because I was playing guitar with Fear for a while, and when I played with Handsome Dick Manitoba from the Dictators, I did 3 tours with him recently, and when I played with those other artists we were talking about before, in those, I'm not the front guy. I got to know my role, my place. I'm rhythm guitar player, or I'm lead guitar player. I'm singing backing vocals when needed and staying away from the mic when not needed, and really focus more on whoever the band leader is, the front man, or, because that's my job in that context. So, when I go out, I kind of go out knowing what my role is. So if I'm headlining, I'll do a longer set and a little bit more of this sort of authoritative kind of personality over the whole evening. But if I'm supporting someone, of course I go out there to kill every night, but I'm also, respectful of the fact that, like, hey, I got a limited time. They're here to see this other person. I want to make sure I say good things about them and create sort of a, the evening's not entirely about me, so I have to gauge myself a little bit,
Man, I know a couple of musicians like you, just doing the work and just, and I just think it's so incredible, really, that you are. I mean, you're kind of. You're a part of so many bands, really, at one time. Like you do so much. Like it's like, I as you talk about it, it's remarkable to me to think that, like, you have all these bands that you've been a part of. Not all of them are probably current or or active right now, but you could probably pop back in and do a reunion with them at any point, right? And like,
yeah, I mean,
you could.
I keep good relations with everybody. As far as my bands go, I'm pretty much these days I'm really focused on my solo stuff, because I'm also working on a second solo record I'm gonna do start at the beginning of the year. So I'm continuing with that stuff. The Streetwalkin Cheetahs have been around forever and continue to make great music. We're working on an EP right now of all new material. That's where I just came from, was recording vocals for that. And so, I mean, and Trading Aces, which is my band in Europe. So those are sort of my 3 bands where I'm sort of the front guy for. And then, depending on the year, I'm usually playing in multiple other bands simultaneously, because these days that's kind of the only way to like make a living as a musician.
Yeah.
I make a living as a musician and as a filmmaker. And I do my filmmaker. For years, I worked at big corporations. I was at NBC forever. I was at Fender forever. I was, Universal, Clear Channel. But I don't really. I'm not digging that anymore. The industry's changed a lot, and I can do better and make more money doing what I'm doing freelance. So I basically keep myself as busy as humanly possible as a musician, because playing guitar and playing music is my number one priority and the thing that I get the most enjoyment from. And then whenever I'm home for whatever, days, weeks, months, I just book as much cool freelance shit and keep myself busy directing music videos, directing marketing videos. I do a lot of very unglamorous stuff when I'm not doing my glamorous stuff. So I'll go and do a tour for 6 weeks and be like this frontman rock star, but then I come back and I shoot these like educational videos for schools and stuff, and they just hire me as a director, and it's fun for me. I get to work with kids, I get to work with professors and people that are just really passionate about their jobs, and it's a great way to sort of keep a life balance, so it's not all you like, I'm a frontman, I'm a rock star all the time. That's a very cool thing.
Yeah.
But it makes it feel better when you have other stuff in your life to balance that with. So whether it's like we were talking before, whether it's my dog, whether it's my wife, whether it's these freelance gigs I do outside of music that kind of keep me grounded and keep life interesting. And then it makes me really appreciative of when I go out there and get to tour the world and play my music for people in different countries or around the United States and have people applaud and enjoy it. That's like a really special thing. So I try to make sure I'm like very aware of that,
Yeah, I think that's incredible, man. And is it ever difficult for you to switch it off and switch it back on? I mean, you hear about, I don't know, I don't want to compare it to this, but like someone goes away, a military person, they go off to, and then they come back and they have to live a normal life again, and it's just...
No, I wouldn't say, I think a lot of, when I go on stage, for instance, it's kind of an exaggerated version of my personality, meaning I've always been someone that comes into a room and starts talking, and my wife always says, everyone you introduce me to, you've known them 20 years, it's like I make a friend and I stay friends with them forever. I have a good rapport with people. I tend to be, as you can tell, kind of talkative. I'm always waving my hands around, and I like talking to people and hearing stories, telling stories, whatever, and that makes being a performer much, kind of gives me a leg up as a performer, because I'm not afraid to talk into a microphone. I'm not afraid to talk to people. I'm not afraid to kind of go big or go small. But you have to gauge, I can't also have every project I'm in be like exactly the same, because that would be kind of boring. And what's the point of seeing me in 3 different bands if they're all just sort of the same thing, So
Right.
when I'm doing my Streetwalkin Cheetahs thing, you're getting this much. It's like that's where all my anger goes. That's the angry side of me. That's the angry young man that I tap into, and I'm much more prone to leaping off the stage and climbing tables and being kind of like making a big spectacle of myself, because that's what we did when we started off, and that's just what that music brings out of me. When I do Trading Aces, it's like cock rock, you know what I mean? So this is like my macho. This is the part of me that's like my teenager listening to Black Sabbath and AC/DC and David Lee Roth and Van Halen, and they're like, wow, the front man, and screaming guitar solos of Scorpions. I love that stuff. So that's like my way of tapping into that. When I'm doing my solo stuff, that's kind of like, that's me listening to the radio as a kid, because when I listened to the radio as a kid, it was like, you listen to everything. You listen to heavy metal and punk and pop, and, you're listening to Jackson Browne and Fleetwood Mac and Tom Petty and Leonard Skinner and just rock and roll radio back in the 70s and 80s when I was a kid. So when I do my solo stuff, I kind of just there are no rules, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have to feel like it has to fit into the punk thing that the Cheetahs have been doing forever, or this new lane I'm carving with my kind of hard rock band. It's like, this is just me writing the best songs I can and not worrying about that it has to have this one sound or for one audience. I'm just kind of trying to like
it's just
see
you.
it's just me and how good I can be as a songwriter. You know, I'm kind of pushing myself more. I'm pushing myself the most in that context, probably.
Yeah, I love that you have that sort of segmented in terms of like your personality goes into different buckets with these different bands. You ever have a week where you're just like, man, I really need a cheetah show so I could just
for sure, for sure. And in fact, the funny thing is, we've been recording a lot lately, but we haven't actually done a gig in 10 months, maybe 8-9 months, because I just got I joined Fear for a while, and we were touring a lot, and I just kind of had to put a bunch of stuff on the back seat for a while, and I have been missing that ability to walk in and basically completely obliterate a room. You know, when the Cheetahs come in, nothing is left standing, and that's not appropriate when I'm doing my solo stuff, because it's a little bit more soulful, bluesy. It's got more textures. If I just started destroying stuff, it wouldn't really fit with the music. But with the Cheetahs music, very quickly you're like, man, we got to fuck shit up. Bam! All of a sudden we're just toppling tables and breaking bottles, and it's just, you know, it's very appropriate to the music, though, because that's what that music is pretty much about.
I gotta see one of those shows. I gotta see one of those Cheetah shows sometime, because
they're wild.
I thought you had just amazing energy playing you're at Smedley's in Cleveland.
Yeah, it's always high energy. I mean, every time I get on stage, there's high energy. It's just like I said, it's kind of focusing that energy into the right context for the music, you know. Project.
So I can't imagine this is true. Like this could be the case, but you mentioned keeping good relations with all your former bandmates and current bandmates and all that. Have you ever had any kind of band drama, or is there just no time for that because you're just just so busy?
I mean, not really. Recently, I don't. You know, I mean, I'm kind of over all that being dramatic stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I think these days everyone's kind of on the same page when you go into stuff. And the way to make sure you're on the same page is to talk to people and communicate and make sure you're on the same page. So no, I don't really get involved in a lot of drama. I mean, when the Cheetahs broke up for about 10 years, and there was some drama around that, but we worked it all out. But, you know, we were much younger and much angrier and much drunker back then. And so we had some lineup changes, and then we had, you know, fighting within band members and just all sorts of sort of drama, or at least stuff that at the time felt like very dramatic. And but eventually, because we were all good friends before we started the band, which is why we started the band, is that we were a bunch of really good friends that wanted to play music together, and play this particular type. We kind of started off playing covers. That's why we were called the Streetwalkin Cheetahs. We're doing Stooges, MC5, Dead Boys. It was like an inside joke. And luckily, our friendships outlasted all that band drama, and eventually we were able to circle back and reform the band and kind of continue where we left off. And I really think the last full album we did, One More Drink, I think it's our best album. I mean, a lot of people say that, but it really is everything that the band is about on one album. It's got the vicious punk chainsaw stuff. It's got the super sugar-coated power pop a la Cheap Trick. It's got, you know, smart stuff. It's got dumb stuff. It's got musically complex stuff. It's got very basic stuff. It's got freight train hard rock. You know, it's got everything. It's like my record collection made a great record. You know?
Yeah.
And that's always what I'm going for, but I really feel like we nailed it on that one. We've been continuing to make music since then, but it felt good when we came back to, like, you know, kind of knock one out of the park. So we've still got a lot of fuel left in that tank for sure.
Yeah, so you're touring right now. I mean, you're taking a bit of a break, but I know you just toured. I saw you on a bit of a Midwest tear through the Northeast a little bit. I think you're getting ready to go back out for a bit of a West Coast kind of deal. Tell me a little bit about that.
There's a band out of Detroit called The Strains. I'm wearing their shirt right now. They're amazing. Yeah. And I met them when I was in Handsome Dick Manitoba's band, the singer of the Dictators. He was doing some solo runs, and I was playing guitar with him. And the Strains supported us for about a week or so worth of dates, and they were just such a good band and such nice people. So we stayed in touch, and we plotted this two-legged tour. The Midwest run, we did about 2 weeks in the Midwest together, and that was awesome. And then we're doing a West Coast run that we start on December 2nd. And there's about a 2-week break in between, mainly because Thanksgiving was coming up and we didn't want to be playing right into Thanksgiving week. So we kind of divided it into 2 runs. And then for this West Coast run coming up, we've got Nick Oliveri from Queens of the Stone Age and Caius, Mondo Generator. He's going to be playing acoustic on the run. And then this great desert rock band called Volume are on a whole bunch of the shows. So it's a really solid lineup, and everyone, I've known the guys in Volume forever, and I've known Nick forever because I also directed 4 Dwarves music videos. So I knew Nick from before that, actually, but we definitely had some fun bonding time making those music videos. In one of them, we have a band of cannibal women eat the band and kill and murder them and then take over their instruments. So I had the awesome fun of murdering Nick Oliveri.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's a great story. We talked a little bit about drama, and everybody has it, but I imagine you've witnessed quite a bit of it too, like in terms of like just the bands that you've toured with, or that you've hung out with, or that you've done music videos for, or that you've done documentaries about, or books about. Do you have any just wild stories from the road, like with all these musicians you've
with? Of course, the wildest ones I probably shouldn't talk about. But as far as drama goes, like I said, I've never really been a guy who brings a lot of drama to the table. So I kind of always managed to stay relatively out of a lot of drama. I've seen some crazy shit, and I've seen some rock star stuff. One thing that pops into mind is the Cheetahs did a tour in the early 2000s with Zodiac Mind Warp. There was a British band called Zodiac Mind Warp and the Love Reaction. I was a huge fan, still am. And this isn't drama, but this is like some fun rock star shit. But the singer was this very eccentric, Zodiac Mind Warp is his name.
Yeah.
And we were at the bar in San Francisco. We'd ordered our food. We were all sitting at the bar eating the food. And there's this nice, behind the bar is all the glasses and, bottles and stuff. And like behind that's like a big mirror. And they had this techno music playing. And Zodiac sits down next to me with his plate of food. And he says to the bartender, "Hey, mate, can you turn that shite off?" And the guy kind of ignores him. And then he goes, "Mate, turn this fucking rave shit off." And the guy kind of just looks at him annoyed and walks away. And Zodiac takes this whole plate of food and throws it at the fucking back of the bar and shatters glasses and mirrors and all this stuff.
Oh, God.
Rain. And the guy just like, "What the fuck?" And Zodiac just like, "Shut off, mate," and goes storming away. And I'm just sitting there like, what the fuck? And I turned to the guitar player, Cobalt Stargazer. I turned to Cobalt Stargazer and I said, "Oh my God, like, what just happened?" He goes, "Well, I guess that's it, the end of the tour. And we were just in it like 2 days." I was like, "Are you kidding? That's it?" And he goes, "Nah, mate, I'm just kidding. This happens every night. You'll get used to it." Walks away.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's real rock star shit. That's great.
My biggest, honestly, the crazy shit for me is that, when I was young, when I was young, I grew up at the Frank Zappa house because I was best friends with Dweezil Zappa and Amit Zappa. And Dweezil was a really early guitar teacher of mine, unofficially, but he took it upon himself to make me a better guitar player, and he gave me lots of lessons and stuff. And I recorded my first demos at Frank's studio, the Utility Muffin Research Kitchen, and but not in the main studio. We had a Tascam 4-track, and we would set up in the vocal booth and make our own little studio within Frank Zappa's studio. But I gotta be around that when I was and Frank and his genius when I was real young. So that was certainly, and it was to the point that I got to see him live, go to rehearsals and recording sessions and just all sorts of crazy stuff. Got to play guitar with him, watch him record. And then, in the 90s and 2000s when I was a journalist, I told you I was a huge Van Halen fan. I sort of struck up. I interviewed David Lee Roth, and we started a friendship. And I shouldn't even say a friendship. We had a relationship where basically he liked the way I wrote about him in a time when he wasn't getting a lot of good press, and he kind of like started having me pal around at things and always inviting me to cool shit, recording sessions, rehearsal studios. When he would do an announcement or a press release or announce a tour or whatever, he'd give me like sort of all access and whatever availability and stuff I need. At one point, he and I started writing a book together, or working on we wrote a proposal for a book we were going to write together that got derailed because he ended up rejoining Van Halen, switching management, and it kind of just changed the way that his whole circle was working, and that thing just sort of went by the wayside. But so I've had a lot of wild runs where, my favorite crazy stories are my hanging out with David Lee Roth stories, because that guy's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, that's Diamond David Lee Roth, goddammit.
Oh, man.
So, I feel like when you've seen Dave in action, like, nothing I've ever really done is, like, I've always kind of on some level kept it cool. Sure, I've done too much drugs at different times, or drank too much, or been an asshole, but, like, that's not like remarkable stuff, especially that's just like most men, And I'm a musician, so I get a bit of a hall pass for some of that stuff.
Yeah, and these guys may say the same about you, but like when you're collaborating with, creating with, just in the presence of people like Frank Zappa and David Lee Roth and the Ramones, the people that you've been with throughout your career, do you just feel yourself getting better? Do you just like feel that energy, like just becoming part of yours? Like,
no, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think that I'm usually trying to be just in the moment in those times and not really think too much about it in that way. I kind of just enjoy, I think one of the reasons why someone like me, meaning especially when I was young and not, a well-known musician or stuff, that one of the reasons why I would end up in those situations or in those rooms is that I was comfortable to be around, and I wasn't freaking out that I was around celebrities or people. Like, I could kind of just enjoy the moment and maybe be kind of funny or goofy to bring something to the table so that I wasn't annoying that this kid is hanging out in the first place. But I think I always try to not be a fan in those moments and just kind of be a fellow musician or just be a fellow human being. There's definitely been times like when I played in Wayne Kramer's band, we did a tour where we played all the MC5 stuff, and he called me over to his apartment one night and sat me down and taught me all the songs, but he taught me the Fred Sonic Smith parts, meaning the other guitar player's parts, so that I could interlink, with Wayne's parts. And then when we went on the road and we were playing some of that stuff, a couple of times he'd kind of pull me aside and be like, "Nah, man, you're too in the boxes. You're too linear. You're thinking too much. Just let it go." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "Well," I go, "What do you mean? I'm just playing a pentatonic in the the key of E." And he's like, "No, you're all, I don't want to hear about scales, keys, none of that. I want you to get out of your head, out of all that structure, and just feel it and go. And if it's goes in a weird direction, that's totally fine. That's what I'm looking for."
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like it was the first time that someone had kind of told me to like, well, this is why my album Living Between the Lines is called Living Between the Lines. The same thing. It's like when you're a kid and they teach you on lined paper how to write, and the teacher's telling you to make sure you write on the line and stuff. But I was always like, on the line, man, I want to write sideways and up, way down. I like Mad Magazine. I like the way they write the comics on the side. I'm going to write a Van Halen logo here. I was doing everything but being on the line. So I felt like my whole life was living in between the lines. Yeah. And that's kind of what Wayne was communicating to me as a guitar player. There are occasional moments, like I remember in that moment when he told me that about playing with him in that moment, that I kind of was like, wow, like okay, this is heavy. Like, you just learned something. You just learned something kind of significant and kind of like might change the way you play guitar. So there's occasional moments when I'm like, ooh, like I'm in a moment right now.
Yeah.
But mostly I try to not think of it that way and just enjoy the moment. And then if later it seems significant, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think that relationship, that rapport that you have with others on a stage or like behind a microphone or whatever, it so clearly comes out in your performance. At this show at Smedley's, I remarked to you afterwards that, I had witnessed you sort of create something organically at the end of your show that wasn't planned. It wasn't on a set list or anything like that. And it you ended up bringing in members of the two opening bands, and it just felt like something was just magical, was just being created in that moment. And it was like nobody had a music sheet, or nobody was talking about the scales, or like you were saying, you were just making music, and it was just incredible to see.
Yeah, I like to thank you. That was fun. We pulled a Johnny Thunder song sort of out of our butt, but no one had discussed doing it, meaning we had never said to any of the other musicians, nor had we played that in my band. I played the song before, but no one on that stage knew what was going to happen. So that it did feel very organic. I always say that, great art and certainly great performances are a mix of being really studied and prepared and rehearsed. And for me, the way that I do that is I repeat. I wrote a song called Repetition Repeat. That's my philosophy, is like, that is how I train myself to do that. That's how I learned to play guitar, play the scales over and over again. That's how I learned to be a good writer, was just constantly doing it. So I'm a big fan of, like, if you like something and you're passionate about something, you should do it as often as you humanly can, because you will get better at it and you will become more confident, and you'll have to think less about doing it. The more you do it, the more it's organic. And so, especially when it comes to performing, I feel like the best shows are the ones where everyone's really rehearsed and knows where they're supposed to be and knows everything they're supposed to know. But you allow for, like, oh, isn't this interesting? And that might mean one song gets stretched out, something gets shortened. It might mean you take a little vamp somewhere and we're going to talk to the audience or whatever. It might mean that an upbeat song could get down. It might mean a down song could get up. If there's room or a space in the room emotionally for me to connect with the crowd, I'm going to take that, and so maybe the music's going to do something a little different then. You have to basically be able to think on your feet and be spontaneous within your very, very well-rehearsed, piece that you're going to perform.
Yeah, fantastic.
Now, if you were in a ballet, you probably couldn't do that. You know what I mean? There's some, if you were in a classical... a chamber ensemble, you can't just have one guy go wild unless there's a portion of the piece that's where he's supposed to go wild. There could be improvisation worked out. But so, again, it's context is everything. But in the case of a rock and roll show, or in the case of a live music performance that's actually being played by the musicians, there's a lot of room for being able to go off script. Now, if you go and see a Beyonce show, which I did earlier this year, and it was absolutely unbelievable, but that's such a high production affair, there's not really room to just riff in the middle of that set unless they create room specifically for an improvisational section. But it's such, there's visuals going on, there's music cues, there's lighting cues, there's just so much going on that's like a tight show, and that's what makes it this incredible 3-hour arena affair. But when the Stones go and play the same venue, SoFi, if you're in Los, whatever your local Enormo Dome is, when Beyonce goes and does it, you're getting this tight, well orchestrated package and everything has to be, perfect. The Stones have about 4 songs that they start off with that are always the same, about 4 or 5 songs in the middle that are always the same, and then in the closing last 25 minutes. But in between, they do whatever the fuck they want. They take a poll from the audience, they play songs, they pull out nuggets, they do blues jams, they call up Buddy Guy and do a Willie Dixon song. Like, the Stones are also doing a 3-hour arena level affair with all those, production cues, but they've built into their set that it is going to go off script. Like, it's going to be on script, and then for these 3 songs, it's whatever the band tells us is going to happen that night. Then when they start Sympathy for the Devil, we're on to Act 2, and the boom, 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 these are the same. Then there's a 3-song space for them to do whatever the fuck they want. Mick will tell us that morning, and we'll adjust. And then when they hit Jumpin' Jack Flash, it's the same until the out, fireworks, encore, boom. You know what I mean? But within their thing, much like the Grateful Dead or something, like, they've worked out that, part of when people come to see our show is they want us to pull some shit out of the catalog or jam with someone or do a 12-minute version of Midnight Rambler that was 8 minutes the night before because they just felt it, So, it's kind of whatever your thing is. But for me, it's a great combination of spontaneity and repetition repeat.
Yeah, at the show afterwards, I was telling you how I thought you had something special going on, and you mentioned that you just said, well, I'm out here playing rock and roll every night. Like, I try to make it special every time. You just try to feel what's special for this particular venue, this particular crowd, on this particular night with this set of musicians that you have.
For sure. I also learned a long time ago that you can't ever gauge your enthusiasm or your performance to whether it's a club or a theater or a festival, whether there's a packed house or an empty room. My take is, my responsibility starts when I hit the stage, and I'm there to give you the full show. And there's no version of the full show that's a 7 or a 6 or an 8. It's a fucking 10 every night.
Yeah, I know.
Or as much as or that's what I'm striving for. Maybe the audience will feel differently, but that's what I'm striving for every night. So when I get up there, I'm bringing it every time, and there's no exceptions. And part of that is to read the room, and instead of getting up and being bummed, I've seen this all the time. The big mistake artists make is, if there's not a packed house, they get up there and they acknowledge it, and then kind of get bummed out and sort of go like, you're going to get the show anyway. Or they just do a much more lackluster, mellower version of the show. Or they cut the set short. They kind of do all this stuff to sort of acknowledge, like, hey, this is a little beneath me. I'm used to playing bigger. I go the opposite direction. I'm like, welcome my special new friends. I see it as like, oh man, we're going to have a really good time tonight because we don't got all them other motherfuckers in the room. It's just us.
That was exactly how it felt at Smedley's. You played this little biker bar in Cleveland, and you were given a 10 performance.
I treated it like
you played
it was an arena show.
You played an arena show at a biker bar. And it
Hallelujah!
Was
I was coming to with the rock and roll revival, baby.
Yes, you did. You did. You talked to during that set about one of the comments you made that I remarked that I found kind of remarkable too, is that you're just out to write earworm songs too, and you're lyrically too, you just have these lyrics that I think that are just perfect for that. They just get in your head. There's so many that I've listened to that they just stick in my head. Tell me a little bit about your lyrical journey and what you're doing, what you're sort of thinking about when you're writing these songs down.
Every song is kind of its own thing. I'm a big movie buff, and obviously worked in film myself. And so I sort of feel like every song's like its own little movie, Some of them are comedies, and some of them are horror movies, and some of them are action movies, and some of them are love stories. And so I just try to make every little song as best as it's supposed to be, and lean into whatever I feel like is the emotion of that song, or is the sort of visual or sonic landscape we're trying to create with that. So that can be interpreted so many ways, in the sense that, like, that doesn't mean that every song has to be true. That doesn't mean that every song has to be based on your own life, and sometimes it's a mix of the two. So there's times that I write really heartfelt songs that are pretty spot on accurate with, like, stuff going on in my life. On this new record, there's a few songs like that. And then there's songs where, you know, like on the new record, Partners in Crime, me and Eddie Spaghetti just robbed a bank, you know? And so obviously Eddie and I didn't rob a bank, but it seemed like the kind of thing we would do. And I just felt like that was a cool idea of, like, two rock and roll outlaws, you know, pulling out the pistols, robbing a bank, shooting a bunch of cops, getting, you know, then Thelma and Louising it down to Mexico with all the loot, you know, bullets in our, you know, blood splurting out. So, like, that was the vibe of that song, and it kind of felt musically like that would be sort of a Thin Lizzy, AC/DC vibe. So that was sort of what came out of that idea. But when I wrote, and then for instance, when I wrote Blue Radio, which is a single off the record, you know, that one, I was kind of thinking about those pop bands, female pop bands from the 60s, like the Ronettes and the Supremes and stuff, and songs like Leader of the Pack, or Remember Walking in the Sand, where it'd be like these tragic stories of, like, oh, my boyfriend, he's so cool, he's so boss, he's so cute, he's got such a leather jacket, he drives a motorcycle, oh, and then he drove off a cliff and he's dead, and now I'm sad forever. Bum, 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 bum. Amy Winehouse kind of, like, brought that whole thing back, I felt like, and I was really into that, into her record when it came out. So when I wrote Blue Radio, I was kind of writing it thinking about that, like a tragic story, like lovers that meet, and then she dies, and it, you know, ruins his life, but then she's rebirthed through the music that he hears through this Blue Radio that she got him as a gift before she passed away. And it just felt like this fun kind of, like, tragic story that I could make this very fun, upbeat pop song. But then another one on the record would be Dead Winter, is written when my mom was passing away. It was wintertime, and it was a couple months before she passed away. And that was me kind of getting out a lot of the sadness and just weird shit in my family and my relationship with her, and kind of putting it into a song. And as I was writing that one kind of felt like, you know, wintertime with a little southern rock. It's sort of got this Allman Brothers, Black Crowes with a dash of Aerosmith kind of thing. So, you know, each song sort of has its own vibe and personality, and some of them are really true, and some of them are total lies, and and most of them are in between. It's like a little truth and a little lies.
Well, those are the best ones. That's great. I think that's why I connect with your music so much too, is because I'm a big movie guy, and I really want to see that Partners in Crime movie. Can you make that?
Yeah, that would be a good one.
That'd be a good one.
I want to do a music video for that, because a lot of times I direct my own music videos, and I'm certainly not afraid to lean into bloodshed and violence. And so I have in my head that whole video, and getting shot and blood stains and sacks of money, and
I want to see that.
Thing. Yeah, it would be cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We can make that happen.
Yeah, for sure. So you said you're working on a second record now. Can you give us a bit of a preview of what are you doing that's different from the first one? Or is it a continuation? Is it a chapter 2, or is it more of a diversion, like a veer from that first record?
Well, so the way I tend to operate is I just write songs constantly, and I record them because I've got a home studio set up, and then I kind of figure out later where they belong. So if I'm writing a punk rock song, it's probably going to end up on a Cheetahs record, but I just sort of put it in my list of, like, new songs. And eventually, when a new Cheetahs record opportunity happens, or Trading Aces or whatever, I kind of go through and I go, oh, these ones feel like they'd be perfect on a Cheetahs record. And the other guys might also have songs to submit. Maybe we've written some in the studio or whatever. But it gives us a leg up because I've already got a bunch of stuff that's, written. Same thing with Trading Aces. If I write like a straight up hard rock song, it's probably not right for the Cheetahs. So in my head, I'm like, ooh, this could be a Trading Aces song. And then everything else is up for grabs essentially for something like a solo record. So with the second record, I've already got the entire thing demoed. I mean, I got 12 songs, demoed top to bottom, ready to go. And when I say demoed, I mean the quality of these these could very well become the album tracks in the sense that I could just have my drummer come in and, you know, record real drums over the fake drums and swap a few things out and easily just turn these into the album. However, my plan is in March, I've got a slot on the Hard Rock Hell Festival in the UK. And I'm going to go and do some shows in the UK. And we're going to do the Hard Rock Hell Festival. And then we're going to go and meet up with this producer I've been in touch with named Dave Draper. And Dave produces all of the recent Wild Hearts albums and Michael Monroe's stuff. And he does a lot of mixing for those artists and many artists as well. And his stuff sounds incredible. And I feel like all the records he's a part of are like the kind of records that are inspiring me from today's, you know, rock and roll output. So I got in touch with him, and he was familiar with the Streetwalkin Cheetahs, and I sent him a link to the recent solo record. But I sent him demos for a few songs on the new record and said, this is kind of where I'm looking to go, and I've got the whole thing demoed out, but here's the sample. And he came back and he's like, dude, I love this material. This is great. Let's do it. So the thought now is I'm going to make half the record in LA, half the record in the UK, and then with Dave, and then I'm gonna send everything to Dave, and he's gonna mix the whole thing top to bottom. And the only reason I'm doing it half in LA and half in the UK is just that, I mean, quite frankly, for us to do the entire album in the UK means basically me and the band got to go move to England for like 2 weeks, not including the shows, and that just gets to be kind of pricey to just up and move to England for that amount of time, right. As opposed to going in for a couple days, doing some sessions, then taking my sessions and finishing them in LA, and then sending it all to Dave, and it'll all go through his brain and his ears as far as sort of the final, you know, sound of it all. So that's kind of the plan right now. I can tell you the album is called Miles to Go, and it's very much kind of just where my head's at right now. It's sort of declaring to the world, or at least myself, that, man, I just got started. I got miles to go, man. I am in this for the long haul. I got more songs, and you know, just in life and in art, I feel like I've still just got a lot to say and a lot of things I want to do. So this is my next sort of statement in that direction.
Well, that's incredible. I'm glad to hear that. I can't wait for more. I can't wait to hear this new record. It's going to be incredible.
Thanks, man. Yeah, the demo sounds killer. Amazing. I'm really, really super excited about it.
Send me some. I'd love to hear it.
I will. It's and it's also cool now because when I did the first record, I didn't really have a band. Like every song kind of has different bands on it, you know, like meaning I did some sessions with some guys, some with others, and kind of assembled a whole album out of that. So there's a lot of killer musicians on it. But now I've been touring for the last year as a solo artist, and I've got a band in Europe and a band in the States. And the band in Europe will be on half the record, and the band in the States will be on the other half the record, and both bands will have the opportunity to like play some live shows, work these new songs out live, then go into the studio when we're nice and hot from a bunch of shows and lay the shit down. So that'll, I think, will also give this album a little more oomph, because it's going to come in with cohesive units of musicians that have been playing live, as opposed to me kind of assembling it Brian Wilson style in the studio, you know.
Yeah, well, I think it sounds incredible. I can't wait. And I'm kind of conflicted now because we started this interview and I was going to ask you to play a song at the end, and coming in I was like all for you playing Blue Radio because I love that song. And now I kind of want to hear something new, but I'm going to leave it up to you. Like,
I would say let's do Blue Radio only because the new stuff it's been recorded, but I haven't actually sat through and played it a lot. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I haven't really played it as a performer. I've just, and the way it's just to give you some insight. Like when I'm recording and writing, a lot of times it's all kind of the same process. So I'll start recording when the song is still kind of in its primordial, sort of like, okay, I know that I like this riff, and I've got this hook, so let me do, 8 bars of this riff and then the hook, and then as I'm doing that, I go, oh, well, this seems like a logical place, and I kind of start doing it, and so by the time I've actually finished the demo, I've also written the song, but I've never actually sat down and played the song from the top at that point, because I'm kind of assembling it and recording it all at the same time, which is why a lot of times I'll take those demo ideas and then sort of redo them with a band in a studio, because then I can sort of think through stuff. That being said, the new songs, all of them have been recorded, and I will send you one. But I haven't actually played through any of them in a way where I would be comfortable, because I feel like I just fuck them up.
Well, that's the best of both worlds there. Like I get both. Like I get Blue Radio. I get a exclusive acoustic live performance of Blue Radio, one of my favorite songs, and then I also get to hear one of the new ones. So.
Yeah, I'll play a new one. Just keep it under your hat, because it's still, it's at this point, all my demos, when they're in this primordial stage, it's me playing all the guitars and the bass and the keyboards, and then I program the drums, and I'm singing all the vocals. By the time it ends up on a record, there's a guitar or two from me, whatever vocals, but then there's other musicians and a real drummer and all the things that make it, album quality. That being said, I know what I'm doing in the studio, so even the demos sound pretty good. A lot of times I've played demos for people, and they're like, these are the demos. Like, why don't you just release this? And I'm like, well, I know it can sound better, but thank you.
Cool. No, I'd love to hear something in kind of like that state.
I'll send you
I will keep it.
I'll send you the title track.
Awesome.
To me, it's when I wrote, with Living Between the Lines, when I wrote Blue Radio, the whole album that was the song that made me kind of go, oh, now I know. I've been sort of like, should I even do a solo record? Like, I'm in multiple bands. What the hell do I do a solo record for? But then when I wrote Blue Radio, I kind of went, oh, that's why. Because if I can write a song that good and it doesn't have a home, because all my other stuff is like harder edged bands, then I need to find a home, i.e. create a new project for this, i.e. well, let's just make a solo record. Yeah. So Blue Radio kind of birthed in a lot of ways the rest of the record. With this song, or with this next album, Miles to Go, I got this idea. My wife has a tattoo that says Miles to Go, and it's from her sister-in-law who passed away from cancer. And that was sort of her motto during that whole period of fighting the cancer. And she was running in these marathons. And so for her, it was like miles to go in both the race, but also the race for her life. And so they all got these tattoos. And I had just come back from doing this tour in Spain. It was really long, and I was kind of exhausted. And we went on this weekend together. And I looked at her tattoo, which I had looked at 1,000 times before. But all of a sudden, instead of kind of seeing her story, I was like, Miles to Go. Dude, I had just come from doing miles and miles of touring. I had 6 more weeks of touring ahead of me. And I also was kind of feeling, like, oh man, I'm really hitting my stride here. So I saw it, and all of a sudden I was like, that's my album title. That's my motto, Miles to Go. And then I literally went home, wrote the song. And when I wrote the song, I was like, and now I know what this album is. It just gave the entire thing direction, wrote a bunch more songs, went through, found a couple of my demos. I was like, yep, this one belongs here. This one belongs here. And it gave it this sort of positive outlook too. Like I said, the first record's it's a happy poppy record, but there's a lot of negative shit on that record. Like Dead Winter's a heavy song. Blue Radio's a heavy song. There's a lot of deep stuff on Living Between the Lines. Living Between the Lines is a very heavy song. I feel like this next record is going to be a bit of a different tone. It's going to be like this upbeat embracing of life. Still rock and roll, still hard edge, but it's going to be if I were to compare it to a Tom Petty record, this will be my Full Moon Fever.
Yeah,
I think
all
that's
right.
where I'm going with this.
Cool. I love that it's so personal, so meaningful for you. That's amazing.
Thank you. So you want me to rock this one?
I love it. Yes, please.
All right, here we go. All I want in the world is my Blue Radio. My girlfriend gave pain. They say the radiator is hot tonight, but we ain't gonna fade away. Not today. All I want in the world is my blue radio. My girlfriend gave it to me when we were going steady-o. Late one night by the carnival ride, she took my hand by the neon light. It was the last thing she gave to me before she died. Blue radio, like living in stereo. Blue radio, blue radio, blue radio in my ear, the last sound I wanna hear. Blue radio on my mind. Goodbye. Bang.
Awesome, man. That was so good.
Thank you.
Love it.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Appreciate it.
Hey,
Appreciate it.
thanks for being on the podcast, Frank. This has been so much fun talking
You
to
got
you.
it, man.
I love your stories. I loved hearing the song. So fantastic. Can't wait to see you out on the road again.
Thanks, man. Mucho apreciado. Hey, this is Frank Meyer. You might know me from the Streetwalkin Cheetahs. You might know me from my solo records. You might know me from Trading Aces, from my many books and films and all sorts of crazy stuff. My ETA is my dog Mojo. He's a rescue. He's a pit lab mix. He's a total goofball. They always say that people get worried about bully breeds. I'm telling you, this guy is the biggest sweetheart. He's just a big floppy cuddle monster. And my most fun parts of the day are taking him out for walks and cuddling with him. So I'm a big dog supporter, a big dog lover, and a big fan of dog rescues. So I can tell you that if you are looking for a great companionship in your life, go rescue a dog. And I happen to be a big fan of pit bulls. They are just the sweetest dogs in the world. So my ETA is Mojo.